Hello everyone, this is Arrow, and welcome back to Sundown Muna Podfics. Today we'll be continuing Fuck Bullies by RandomWeirdCat, Chapter 26. Aizawa kept his eyes on Bakugo. The boy was visibly upset and angry. His eyes were watery, but he refused to cry. Nezu suddenly starts to laugh. They all jump and stare at the principal. This has been so interesting and helpful. Nezu slides off his chair and stood. He walks around the desk and stood next to Eraserhead. I have one more question until the next meeting, Nezu said. All right. Bakugo glances up from his hands. Do you regret anything? Bakugo's palms light up and he flinches. He crosses his arms and hides his hands. It's fine if you don't It's fine. You don't have to answer now. You may leave. Like a rocket, Bakugo takes off and runs towards the door with his head down. He grips the handle and throws the door open. He takes one step through the doorframe and stops. Takemichi's phone goes off with an alert and he quickly glances at it with wide eyes. Bakugo's shoulders fall. I do regret it. Bakugo slams the door shut and Sakutsuchi glances up at Nezu. Excuse my language, but holy fucking shit. Sakutsuchi takes off his hat and leans back into the chair. Aizawa sat down next to him and huffs. Well, at least he regrets it, Sakutsuchi says. Aizawa snorts and rubs at his tired eyes. Good for him. Still bullying and abuse, though. Schools have fucking classes on this shit and have anti-bullying shit all the time. Did nobody in Izuku's school have working brain cells? Nezu laughs. It appears not. I've tracked down most of the students of Aldera and all the teachers and past principals. I will be shutting down that school by tomorrow. Sakutsuchi whistles. That was fast. Not fast enough. Izuku and probably other students have been rejected and hurt because of this school. This brings up another question. Did Midoriya file any complaints against the school to any of the authorities? Sakutsuchi shook his head with a frown. No, I've gone through all the records at least 4 times. I looked through the school files too. Midoriya only filed one complaint, around 11 years ago. A loud groan was heard from Aizawa. It echoes off the walls. If Midoriya has neglected her child, can I adopt him? Nezu nods. You may have troubles with All Might when we find him in the children. He's grown quite attached to Midoriya. That idiot barely knows how to take care of himself. Aizawa leans back and stretches his legs out. He crosses them over each other. Sakutsuchi glances down at his bright pink sweatpants and tired eyes. He smirks. Well, besides that clusterfuck of a mess with Katsuki Bakugo, we got a lead on to where Hitoshi might be. A tracking hero found his scent at a rundown bar in Kamino. Aizawa almost falls out of his seat and sits up quickly. They did? When? He shouts in a rush. About 4 minutes ago. Nezu raises his paws in the air with a grin. That's wonderful! Nezu crawls up Aizawa's arm and goes into his scarf. When will your new team be going after this lead? Tomorrow night, but Sakutsuchi sighs. I'm worried. With all 4 really being alive in the league with a warp villain and Nomu, can we handle that? They have All Might and 2 students. They could use someone as a hostage and get away. They could. I'm worried as well. With most of the quirk and strength heroes in the hospital and UA staff so spread out, I don't know what will happen. Nezu leans against Aizawa. Eraserhead narrows his eyes. How many stealth heroes do we still have? A handful. What if we take Hitoshi right from under their noses? All Might and Izuku aren't there, and we'll know if they do arrive at any given time, so it's only Hitoshi. If we can just grab Hitoshi and get out. Aizawa suggests. Nezu hums. I don't know how those heroes will be able to extract Hitoshi without the villains noticing. They have to be watching him like a hawk. Nezu points out. What we cause a distraction. Sakutsuchi glances around the room and nods to himself. The distraction would have to be quick and big enough to get all their attention, but even then that's still risky and dangerous. If any other villains suspect anything. Aizawa shrugs. Any better ideas? None that are safe. We're dealing with the villains. Nothing about this is safe. Chapter 27. Izuku was 14 years old. He rolls out of bed and his feet dragging. He throws on his school uniform, kisses his mom goodbye, and tells her he'll grab something to eat on the way. He's been skipping lunch for 2 years now, and he's been skipping breakfast for 3 years. He only eats when he's home and safe with his dark thoughts. Eating is a waste. He gets punched and elbowed in the stomach at least twice a day, and he ends up gagging and throwing up. It depends on where they strike and how hard they hit. He doesn't want to take that chance either. Izuku runs down the road. The heaviness in his bones was ignored. The freshly bandaged cuts were ignored. The whispers of suicide every time he sees a tall building are ignored. He keeps his eyes in front of him. A villain is disrupting the train. Maybe the villain is a killer, and he'll hit him and throw something at him. Nope, the villain is just a thief. Maybe if he gets closer, that'll help him get killed with fewer injured people. A man stops him and calls him a fanboy when he gets excited. Serves him right. His stupid mouth is making strangers annoyed now. He turns his head and glares at the ground. Mount Lady defeats the villain. Izuku takes notes and leaves quickly. Maybe his teacher won't yell at him. No, wrong. The second he steps through the doorway, he's getting yelled at. The day goes on. He gets yelled at for being late when he steps in at the same time as the bell rings. He gets yelled at for having his shoes untied. He gets yelled at for keeping his head down and not raising his hand. It's finally the end of the day. He's in class with his head pressed against his desk. This is the 10th one that the school has to give him since the other ones were destroyed. Kachan only threw him into the wall today. That's his fault. He was in the way. Someone punched him in the stomach. Only one person did today, but they did push him down a flight of stairs. He was fine, though. He only got a little dust on his uniform. Izuku was tripped during third period. His seat was kicked and his chair was pulled out from under him. He's fine. The teachers talk about futures. He's still trying for UA. Kachan stands on his desk and says he'll be more popular than All Might. Izuku believes him. He flinches and places his hands over his head when Kachan starts screaming. His teacher points out that he wants to go to UA, and everyone bursts out laughing, because it's funny that he has dreams and that everyone doesn't believe in him. It's fine, they're right. He barely believes in himself. Kachan sets off an explosion in front of his face. He yells at him. Izuku's big mouth opens and he argues. Suddenly, everyone's eyes glare down at him. Their quirks are going off and Kachan sets off another explosion. Their teacher sighs and sits down. All right, get back to your seats. Midoriya, stop antagonizing everyone. Kachan huffs and sits down with the others. Izuku crawls back to his seat. He lays his head back down on his desk. The teacher is talking again. He can't focus. He glances at the windows and shuts his eyes again. It's open. He can just run at it and jump. The voices of his teacher and classmates are muffled. He squeezes a hand against his waist. He focuses on the pain to bring him back. Class is over. He doesn't even notice the bell ringing. He sees everyone leave. The teacher leaves him in a room by himself. He grabs his phone and checks the news. He needed to take some more. Kachan's here. Great. Kachan destroyed his notebook. His other 3 friends laugh at him. Kachan throws his notebook out the open window. Izuku wants to dive after it. Kachan began monologuing and burns his shoulder. Izuku can feel the heat. He needs that to focus. His eyes shift from the window to a now smiling Kachan. He can barely hear the words and barely say anything. Before he knows it, Kachan and his friends are walking away, mocking him. His eyes burn, his hands hurt. His nails dig into his palms hard enough to leave deep, bloody marks. Kachan says the one thing that breaks his mind. And take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Izuku's mind shatters. The world around him darkens, and there's nothing but anger and pain clouding his mind. He looks over his shoulder and glares at Bakugo. Kachan's hand sparks and Izuku flinches. The anger leaves his mind and he's stuck with the pain. School's over. He feels like he's drowning it as he walks through the hallways down the stairs. He finds his notebook and drags his feet. Take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku looks up at the tall building. He could do it. He can go back up those stairs and jump. Leave it all behind. The stupid dream, the stupid notebook, his stupid habits. His mom. Izuku's eyes blur with tears. He keeps walking. He stops and wipes his tears. He glances at the notebook and finds a little spark of hope. He'll be just like All Might. He can do it. He can live through this. Yet, he's drowning. Something is sliding down his throat and in his nostrils. He's losing consciousness. He can't breathe or see well. He's dying, and no one's going to help him. He's going to die. Finally. The rest of the day is a blur until he's on the roof, left behind by All Might. His dreams are now broken like his mind and hopes. Take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku drops his book bag. He takes off his shoes and walks closer to the edge that All Might was sitting at. The fall will break his neck if he angles himself a certain way. He leans against the old railing and feels it shake as he puts his weight forward. He closes his eyes and starts to fall. An explosion makes him open his eyes. He sees smoke in the air and heard faint screams. Izuku frowns. The tears start to run down his cheeks. He glances down the tall building. This isn't the right one. It's too populated and he just hit the road, causing other people to have to take a different road. Izuku lets go of the railing and leans back. He steps back from the railing and grabs his shoes. It's another blur. The tears are falling down his cheeks again and he's walking home from a long day. All Might saved the day. Kacchan lived. The heroes yelled at him and praised Kacchan. He needs to find a right building with a good alleyway. He looks around and heard Kacchan yell his name and yells at him. More tears cloud his vision. Take a swan dive off the roof. That's exactly what he's going to do. There's no reason to live. His mom will live a better life. She'll be okay. All Might scares him and offers to give him his quirk because he thinks your reckless and suicidal actions are just outstanding. Alphorn screams. Izuku blankly looks up. His eyes stung. They were bloodshot. His hands shook and his mind is filled with thoughts from that day. He should have died, but he couldn't let All Might down. His chair is broken and his hands are clenched at his sides. He looks like Kacchan right before he burned his shoulder. Izuku flinches and covers his head with his hands. I'm sorry, please don't. A hand touches his head as he wails. The hand pulls away. Izuku, it's not your fault. You're safe. I'm done. That's all I wanted to show you. I'm sorry you had to relive that. The bed dips and Izuku whimpers. His hands clench tighter in his hair. All for one sighs. You are not pathetic. You are not worthless. You are not Deku. All for One spoke softly. Izuku doesn't respond, so All for One keeps talking. This isn't the time to keep pushing, but your Kacchan hurt you. Your classmates hurt you. Your teachers bullied you. Your mother neglected you. All Might hurt you. How does that make you feel? They didn't hurt him. He's fine, Izuku wanted to argue. What were they doing then? That's far beyond horseplay, and Katsuki was not messing around. He told you to take a swan dive off a roof. Friends don't do that. All for One's hand reaches out for Izuku. I'm going to touch your hand. It's me. It's no one else. It's not Bakugo. I'm not your classmates. I'm not your teachers. All for One slowly places his hand over Izuku's. The boy sobs and presses his face into the sheets. Izuku, does any of your friends at UA trip you, bully you, or threaten you? Does anyone make you bleed on purpose? Do they tell you to kill yourself? Izuku screams again. All for One rubs circles against its head. It's okay. Scream as long as you want. I'll be right here. I apologize if you don't want me here, but I don't think you want all the League hovering over you. All for One sighs. This world is confusing and crooked. I used to understand it, but now children are bullied to suicide and so-called heroes are breaking people. His fingers brush against a few strands of Izuku's hair. He twists the curl lightly and doesn't pull on any strands. I would say that this experience broke you, but you've been broken for a very long time, even before Katsuki told you to kill yourself. All for One said. He grabs the blanket on the bed and wraps Izuku in it. I've never tried this before, the whole trying to fix a child instead of breaking them more. It seems I'm doing both. I'll work on that. Alphorn pats Izuku's head and leans further into the bed. Alright everyone, that is the end of chapters 26 and 27 of Fuck Bullies. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.